Captain Sarah Chen stared at the message on her screen for the third time. The words did not change, no matter how hard she wished they would. Another relocation order. Another system that humans had to abandon. Colony ships will evacuate Kepler 442 within 60 standard days, she read aloud to her empty office. The Hegemony Council has designated this system for Alterian expansion. Sarah rubbed her tired eyes. 3 colonies in 5 months. Each time, the same cold bureaucratic language. Each time, 50,000 humans had to pack up their lives and find somewhere else to go. The council always made it sound reasonable. They used words like optimal resource allocation and species compatibility. What they really meant was simple. Humans were not wanted here. The door to her office opened. Commander David Park walked in without knocking. He looked as frustrated as Sarah felt. "Another one?" David asked, nodding at her screen. "Kepler 442, Sarah said. Population 53,000. They have farms, schools, a medical center. Kids who were born there." David sat down heavily in the chair across from her desk. "Where are they supposed to go?" Sarah pulled up a star map on her wall display. The human sectors glowed in pale blue. They looked like scattered dots compared to the vast territories of other species. The Zephyrian Empire covered half the galaxy's core systems. The Altarians controlled the resource-rich outer rim. The Vegan Confederacy held the trade routes. Humans got the leftovers. There, Sarah pointed to a dim system on the edge of known space. Proxima C, rocky worlds, thin atmosphere, limited resources. "That's the 4th colony we've sent there this year," David said. "The system can't support that many people." "I know." They sat in silence for a moment. Outside the viewport, Earth hung like a blue marble against the black of space. It was beautiful, but it was also a reminder of how small humanity had become. 4 billion people crammed onto one world, while their colonies got pushed further and further into the dark corners of the galaxy. "Sarah," David said quietly, "how much longer can we keep doing this?" Before she could answer, her communication system chimed. The council seal appeared on her screen. Ambassador Wei Zhang's face followed, broadcasting from the Hegemony Station. "Citizens of Earth and the human colonies," Ambassador Zhang began. His usually calm voice carried a hint of strain. "I speak to you today following another session of the Galactic Council. Once again, I have presented humanity's case for expanded settlement rights. Once again, our request has been denied." Sarah and David watched as Zhang continued his report. Behind him, they could see the vast council chamber. Representatives from dozens of species sat in tiered seats that rose like a mountain around the central podium. The Zephyrians occupied the highest tier, their insect-like forms casting shadows over the smaller species below. "The Council has ruled that humanity's rapid technological advancement poses a potential threat to galactic stability," Zhang said. "Therefore, our classification as a restricted development species will continue." Sarah felt her hands clench into fists. Restricted development species. The official term made it sound scientific, but everyone knew what it really meant. Humans were too dangerous to be trusted, too unpredictable, too different. "Furthermore," Zhang continued, his voice growing tighter, "the Council has approved additional measures to ensure compliance with galactic law. Human military vessels will face increased inspection protocols. Our research programs will require Council approval before proceeding, and our colonies will accept only Council-approved settlers." The transmission ended. Sarah and David stared at the blank screen. "Council-approved settlers," David repeated slowly. "They want to control who can live in our own colonies." Sarah stood and walked to the viewport. Below, the lights of Luna City twinkled on the moon's surface. Once that had seemed like humanity's greatest achievement. Now, it felt like a cage. Her personal communication device buzzed. The caller identification showed Dr. Elena Vasquez from the Aurora Research Station. Sarah accepted the call. "Captain Chen?" Dr. Vasquez appeared on her screen. She looked nervous, glancing over her shoulder before speaking. "I need to speak with you, in private." "What about?" "Not over open channels." "Can you come to Aurora Station?" Sarah frowned. Aurora Station was officially listed as a civilian research facility studying asteroid mining techniques. But Sarah had heard rumors that other work happened there, work that the council might not approve of. "I'll be there tomorrow," Sarah said. After ending the call, she turned back to David. "Something's happening." "What do you mean?" "Aurora Station. Dr. Vasquez wants to meet." She seemed scared. David was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Sarah, there are stories, rumors about research projects that aren't in the official reports." "What kind of research?" "The kind the council banned us from doing." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. The council's technology restrictions were absolute. Humans could use approved equipment, approved designs, approved materials. Anything else was illegal. The punishment was severe. Loss of colonies, trade restrictions, sometimes military intervention. But Sarah also knew that humanity had not survived this long by following every rule. Humans adapted. They found ways around obstacles. They learned from their mistakes and from their enemies. "If such research exists," Sarah said carefully, "what would its purpose be?" David met her eyes. "Insurance," he said, "for the day when patience stops being enough." The next morning, Sarah took a shuttle to Aurora Station. During the flight, she thought about humanity's history with the Council. 200 years ago, humans had reached the stars. They had been so excited to discover they were not alone. First contact had seemed like the beginning of a golden age. Instead, it had been the beginning of 2 centuries of restrictions and humiliation. The Council had rules for everything: where species could settle, what technology they could develop, how they could govern themselves. For older species, these rules were guidelines. For humans, they were chains. But chains could be broken. Sarah was beginning to wonder if the time had come to test their strength. As her shuttle approached Aurora Station, she saw the asteroid mining equipment that gave the facility its cover story. But she also noticed the unusual power readings on her scanner. For a mining operation, Aurora Station used far too much energy. Dr. Vasquez met her at the airlock. She was a small woman with graying hair and intense brown eyes. She led Sarah through corridors lined with legitimate mining research equipment. But at the end of one corridor, she stopped at a door that required both a handprint and retinal scan. "What I'm about to show you," Dr. Vasquez said, "doesn't officially exist." The door opened. Beyond it lay a laboratory filled with equipment Sarah had never seen before. Human scientists worked at stations displaying incomprehensible data. In the center of the room sat something that made Sarah's breath catch. It looked like a sphere of liquid metal, floating in a containment field. Energy patterns danced across its surface, like lightning frozen in time. "What is it?" Sarah whispered. Dr. Vasquez smiled. For the first time since Sarah had arrived, she looked confident instead of nervous. "Hope," she said. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been called with only 6 hours' notice. Ambassador Wei Zhang sat in the human delegation's small section, watching as the chamber filled with representatives from across the galaxy. The Zephyrian High Counselor, a massive insect-like creature with 4 arms and compound eyes, stood at the central podium. "Fellow members of the hegemony," the High Counselor's voice buzzed through the translation system. "We gather today to address a growing threat to galactic peace and stability." Zhang felt his stomach tighten. When the Zephyrians called something a threat, humans usually suffered for it. Recent intelligence reports indicate that the human species has been developing unauthorized technology, the High Counselor continued. Furthermore, human colonies have shown disturbing patterns of rapid expansion and resource consumption. Honored Counselor, I request permission to address these accusations. The High Counselor's compound eyes fixed on him. Permission denied. The evidence is clear and requires no human interpretation. A holographic display appeared above the podium. It showed star charts, resource allocation data, and population growth statistics. To Zhang, it looked like normal colonial development. To the Council, it apparently looked like aggression. Therefore, the High Counselor announced, the Council hereby approves Emergency Resolution 847. Zhang felt the blood drain from his face. Emergency resolutions could not be debated or appealed. They took effect immediately. All human military vessels will be surrendered to Council forces within 30 days, the High Counselor read from a datapad. Human colonies are hereby restricted to sublight travel only. All faster-than-light drives will be removed or destroyed. The chamber filled with murmurs of approval from other species. Zhang tried to speak. No sound came out. Additionally, the High Counselor continued, human children will be relocated to Council education facilities to ensure proper integration with galactic civilization. This measure will prevent future destabilization caused by human unpredictability. Now Zhang found his voice. You cannot separate families. This is a violation of every principle the Council claims to represent. Silence. The High Counselor's voice boomed through the chamber. The human delegation will accept these terms or face military enforcement. Finally, the Zephyrian read the last part of the resolution. Humanity will pay reparations for the destabilization their presence has caused. Payment will consist of 50% of all human industrial output for the next century. Zhang stared at the Council in horror. They were not just restricting humanity anymore, they were destroying it. Without FTL travel, the human colonies would be isolated. Without their military, they would be defenseless. Without their children, they would have no future. And the reparations would leave them too poor to rebuild. This is genocide, Zhang said quietly. This is justice, the High Counselor replied. The vote is unanimous among all Council species. The human delegation abstains, as is their right, as the subject species. Zhang looked around the chamber. Species that had once seemed friendly now avoided his gaze. Others watched with open satisfaction. The Altarians, who had been pushing humans out of system after system, looked particularly pleased. The session ended. Zhang sat alone in his delegation box, as the chamber emptied. 2 centuries of diplomacy, compromise, and cooperation had led to this moment. Humanity had tried so hard to be good galactic citizens. They had followed every rule, accepted every restriction, swallowed every insult. And this was their reward. 3 days later, the colony ship New Geneva was 3 hours away from the Kepler 189 system, when the Council Enforcement Fleet appeared. Captain Maria Santos had 50,000 civilians aboard her ship. Men, women, children, elderly people, all refugees from overcrowded human colonies, hoping to start fresh in a new system. Council vessel Aurora's Fist, to Human Transport New Geneva. The communication came through clearly. You are in violation of Emergency Resolution 847. Surrender your FTL drive immediately. Captain Santos looked at her navigation officer. How far are we from the system? 2 hours at current speed, Captain. Santos activated her communication system. Aurora's Fist. This is Captain Santos. We are carrying civilian refugees. We will surrender our FTL drive after we reach our destination. The reply came back, cold and mechanical. Negative, New Geneva. You will surrender your drive now, or be destroyed. Santos felt ice form in her chest. Aurora's Fist, we have children aboard. Babies, elderly people who need medical care. We need just 2 more hours. You have 5 minutes to comply. Santos looked around her bridge. Her crews stared back at her with frightened faces. In the passenger compartments below, 50,000 people were probably having dinner, reading stories to their children, or planning their new lives on Kepler 189. Captain, her communications officer said quietly, they're charging weapons. Santos closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, her voice was steady. All hands, this is the captain. Brace for emergency maneuvers. Take us to maximum speed. Get us to that system. Captain, they'll fire on us. Yes, Santos said. They will. The new Geneva leaped forward as its engines reached full power. Behind it, the Council enforcement ships opened fire. The colony ship had no weapons, no shields, no armor. It was designed to carry people safely across the stars, not to fight. The first energy blast tore through its engine section. The second destroyed its life support systems. The third broke its hull in half. 50,000 people died in vacuum and fire. The news reached Earth 6 hours later. Zhang was in his office when Captain Chen arrived. She did not knock. She walked in, set a data pad on his desk, and said, "Read this." Zhang looked at the report. His hand shook as he read about the new Geneva. About the children. They destroyed a refugee ship, he whispered. Yes. 50,000 civilians. Yes. Zhang stood up slowly. He walked to his communication console and activated the emergency broadcast system. Every human colony, every human ship, every human settlement would receive this message. Citizens of Earth and the human colonies, he began. Today, the Galactic Council showed us who they really are. They are not peacekeepers. They are not protectors of civilization. They are bullies who fear what they cannot control. Chen watched as Zhang's usual diplomatic calm melted away. For 200 years, we have tried to be reasonable. We have accepted their restrictions. We have swallowed their insults. We have bent our knee and begged for scraps from their table. We told ourselves that patience would be rewarded. That cooperation would lead to acceptance. Zhang paused, looking directly into the camera. We were wrong. Today, they murdered 50,000 innocent people for the crime of seeking a new home. Men, women, children, elderly people, all dead because they dared to travel in a ship that belonged to humanity. He leaned forward. They wanted to see what happens when humanity loses patience. They are about to find out. This broadcast is my final act as ambassador to the Galactic Council. I hereby resign from that position. Zhang reached up and removed the ceremonial pin that marked his diplomatic status. The talking is over. We tried to be reasonable. He dropped the pin onto his desk. You should have let us. The transmission ended. Within minutes, Zhang's words were spreading through human space faster than any council ship could travel. In research stations like Aurora, in hidden facilities throughout the colonies, in the deep space installations that officially did not exist, humans who had been waiting for this moment began to move. Dr. Elena Vasquez was one of them. She stood in her laboratory, looking at the sphere of liquid metal that Sarah Chen had seen days before. Around her, dozens of similar devices hummed with contained power. Activate the network, she said quietly. Across human space, the toys that had been built in secret began to wake up. The Council had no idea what was coming. They had pushed humanity past the breaking point. Now they would learn what humans did when patience finally collapsed. High Admiral Kath Zara of the Zephyrian Enforcement Fleet stared at the empty space where the patrol ship Stinger had been just moments before. Her compound eyes shifted between multiple displays, all showing the same impossible thing. Nothing. Status report, she buzzed to her tactical officer. High Admiral, the Stinger was conducting a routine patrol of the human border sectors. We lost contact at 14:22 Standard Time. No distress signal. No energy discharge. No debris field. Katzara's forearms moved across her control panel, bringing up sensor data. The Stinger had been there, and then it had not been there. Ships did not simply vanish. There was always evidence. Wreckage. Energy signatures. Something. Expand the search pattern. Deploy additional sensor probes. This was the third ship to disappear in the past week, all in sectors near human space, all without any trace of what had happened to them. It had been only 10 days since the New Geneva incident, and already the humans were causing problems. On the bridge of the human research ship Curiosity, Captain Sarah Chen watched the Zephyrian search pattern through a display that should not have existed. The ship's stealth system made them invisible to conventional sensors, and the quantum phase manipulator let them observe Council forces without being detected. Impressive, said Dr. Elena Vasquez, standing beside her. They have no idea we're here. Sarah nodded. The technology Dr. Vasquez had shown her at Aurora Station was beyond anything she had imagined. Not just the stealth systems and phase manipulators, but the entire network of devices that connected human space in ways the Council could never understand. Where did all this come from? Sarah asked. Dr. Vasquez smiled. 200 years of being told what we couldn't do. Every time the Council banned a technology, we studied it. Every time they restricted our research, we found new ways to learn. They thought they were controlling us. Actually, they were teaching us. Sarah looked at the tactical display again. The Stinger was not destroyed. It was elsewhere. The quantum tunnel system that connected Aurora Station to dozens of hidden facilities could also move ships across vast distances instantly. The Council patrol vessel was now in a holding facility in the Tau Ceti system, its crew alive but confused about what had happened to them. No killing unless absolutely necessary, Dr. Vasquez had insisted when they planned this operation. We are not them. We will prove that humans can be better. But Sarah knew that mercy had limits. The memory of the New Geneva burned in her mind. 50,000 innocent people, murdered for the crime of being human. She would follow the no-killing rule for now, but if the Council escalated, humanity would respond in kind. Her communication system chimed. Captain Chen, this is Admiral Torres. Sarah straightened. Admiral Marcus Torres commanded Earth's defense fleet. If he was calling personally, something important was happening. Admiral, this is Chen. Sarah, how is the field test going? Better than expected, sir. The Council has no idea how we're making their ships disappear. They're increasing patrols, but they can't patrol what they can't see. Good. Because it's time for the next phase. Sarah felt her pulse quicken. Sir? The Council is calling another emergency session. They want to discuss increased security measures for dealing with human terrorism. Ambassador Zhang's replacement will be presenting their demands in 6 hours. Sarah closed the communication and turned to Dr. Vasquez. What's the next phase? Instead of answering, Dr. Vasquez led her to a different part of the ship. They entered a room that Sarah had never seen before. It was filled with communication equipment and holographic displays showing star charts of the entire galaxy. For 2 centuries we've been mapping everything, Dr. Vasquez explained. Every Council trade route, every military installation, every supply depot, every communication relay. They never noticed because we seemed harmless. Sarah stared at the displays. The level of detail was incredible. The humans had not just been studying Council technology, they had been studying Council civilization. They knew where every important facility was located, how the supply chains worked, which systems were vulnerable. How many people know about this? Sarah asked. Every human who needed to know. Scientists, military officers, colonial administrators. We've been preparing for this day since the first restrictions were placed on us. Dr. Vasquez activated a holographic display showing the Sol system. Sarah gasped. Around Earth's star, massive structures orbited that had never appeared on any official chart. They looked like rings of connected stations, all humming with contained energy. What are those? Quantum tunnel generators. They connect to smaller generators in every human colony, every research station, every hidden facility we've built. The Council thinks human space is scattered and vulnerable. Actually, it's all one connected network. Sarah began to understand. You can move entire fleets instantly across any distance. Exactly. And today, they're going to find out what that means. 6 hours later, the Galactic Council convened another emergency session. The new human representative, a nervous-looking diplomat named Dr. Rachel Kim, sat in the small human section. The Zephyrian High Counselor dominated the podium as usual. The human terrorist attacks must stop immediately, the High Counselor announced. 3 enforcement vessels have been captured through unknown means. This is an act of war. Dr. Kim stood up. Honored Counselor, humanity has captured no ships. We have no military capable of such actions. Then explain the disappearances. Perhaps your ships encountered technical difficulties. Space is dangerous. The High Counselor's buzzing became angry. Do not mock this council. We demand the immediate return of our vessels and crew. Dr. Kim appeared to check a datapad. I'm sorry, but I have no information about any missing council ships. As the argument continued, something strange began happening throughout council space. Long-range sensors detected energy signatures appearing near critical installations. Massive readings, like nothing in the council's database. The first report came from the Altarian Trade Hub at Rigel Station. Council Command, this is Rigel Station. We have multiple unidentified contacts. Large vessels, unknown configuration. Then from the Zephyrian Naval Base at Vega Prime. Command, we have a problem. Unknown fleet just appeared in our system. Where did they come from? More reports flooded in. Unknown ships near mining operations. Unknown fleets blocking trade routes. Unknown forces surrounding military bases. All appearing simultaneously across hundreds of systems. In the council chamber, the High Counselor's aide whispered urgently in his ear. His compound eyes widened as he listened. Impossible, he buzzed. Dr. Kim looked up from her datapad. Is something wrong, Honored Counselor? Before the High Counselor could answer, every communication system in the chamber activated. Admiral Marcus Torres appeared on screens throughout the room. He was standing on the bridge of a ship that looked like nothing the Council had seen before. Behind him, space showed the blue-white glow of Earth's sun. Members of the Galactic Council, Torres began, his voice calm but carrying absolute authority. I am Admiral Marcus Torres of the Human Defense Fleet. You seem surprised to see us. The High Counselor found his voice. How did you get there? Our sensors showed no ships approaching. Torres smiled. It was not a friendly expression. You've spent 2 centuries studying us, restricting us, limiting what we could learn and build. You thought you knew everything about human capabilities. He gestured to something off-screen. The display changed to show a star chart of the galaxy. Red dots marked the positions of human fleets. There were hundreds of them, positioned near every major council facility. You were wrong, Torres continued. Every restriction you placed on us taught us to find new ways. Every insult motivated us to become stronger. Every limitation forced us to be more creative. The council chamber had fallen completely silent. You destroyed the new Geneva. 50,000 innocent people, including children. You told us it was justice. Torres leaned forward. Today, you learn what human justice looks like. He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. We could destroy every installation you consider important. We could cripple your trade networks, disable your communications, crush your military forces. All simultaneously, all before you could respond. The silence stretched for long seconds. But we won't, because we are not you. Instead, we offer you a choice. End the restrictions on humanity. return our captured people, recognize us as equals, or discover what happens when the gentle species finally goes to war. The council chamber remained silent as representatives stared at displays showing human fleets throughout their territory. The High Counselor looked at Dr. Kim, who was still sitting calmly in the human section. "You knew," he accused. Dr. Kim smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. "We tried to be reasonable. You should have let us." The Altarian Defense Minister, Kral Vex, stood before the Emergency War Council, his blue-scaled face showing the first signs of panic that his species had displayed in 3,000 years. Around the table, representatives from the galaxy's most powerful species waited for his report. "The humans have struck 17 critical facilities in the past 12 hours, he said, his usually smooth voice crackling with stress. "Not destroyed, disabled. Every attack was surgical, precise, calculated to cause maximum disruption with minimal casualties." The Zephyrian High Counselor's compound eyes glittered with fury. "Describe these attacks." Kral Vex activated a holographic display. The Altarian industrial complex at Bellatrix, their power grid was mysteriously overloaded, shutting down production for 6 months. The vegan trade station at Procyon, all their computers were infected with a virus that turned their systems against them. The Zephyrian Military Academy at Deneb, their training ships were somehow reprogrammed to fly themselves into controlled orbit around a nearby moon. "How did they penetrate our security systems?" The vegan counselor, a tall creature with silver skin and no visible face, spoke through a translation device. "That's just it," Kral Vex said. "They didn't penetrate anything. They appeared to already have access to everything. Our communication networks, our computer systems, our facility layouts. They know more about our infrastructure than we do." The truth was worse than any of them realized. For 2 centuries, humans had not just been restricted, they had been hired. Human technicians had serviced council equipment because they were skilled and cheap. Human engineers had designed improvements to council systems because they were creative. Human traders had transported goods because they were reliable. The council had never noticed that every human worker was also an intelligence gatherer. In the Proxima Centauri system, Commander Lisa Park stood on the bridge of the human ship Determination, watching as her engineering teams completed their work on a disabled Zephyrian communications relay. The massive station had not been destroyed, it had been improved. "Status report," she said to her chief engineer. "We've finished installing the new communication protocols, Commander. The station will work perfectly for normal council traffic, but every message will also be copied to our intelligence network." Lisa nodded. The human strategy was brilliant in its simplicity. Instead of destroying council infrastructure, they were taking control of it. Every facility that humans attacked came back online with hidden improvements that gave humanity access to council communications, movement schedules, and strategic planning. The council was fighting an enemy that could see their every move before they made it. Her communication officer looked up from his station. "Commander, we're receiving a priority message from Admiral Torres." "Put it through." Torres appeared on the main screen. Behind him, Lisa could see the command center of the Sol defense platform, humanity's secret military headquarters that had been hidden in Earth's asteroid belt for decades. "Lisa, how are things in your sector?" "Clean and efficient, Admiral. The Zephyrians are responding exactly as predicted. They're pulling forces back to protect their core systems, which gives us access to the outer territories." "Good, because we're moving to Phase 3. Phase 3 was the demonstration that would show the Council exactly how outmatched they were. 6 hours later, every major Council leader was summoned to an emergency session. The message had been sent through their own communication networks, but somehow it carried Admiral Torres' personal authorization codes. The Council had no idea how humans had obtained those codes. When they assembled, the chamber's main display activated without anyone touching the controls. Torres appeared again, but this time he was not alone. Behind him stood representatives from every human colony, research station, and military unit in known space. "Esteemed council members," Torres began, "we gather today to discuss terms." The Zephyrian High Counselor buzzed angrily. "We do not negotiate with terrorists." Torres smiled. "Then you don't understand your situation. Allow me to explain." The display changed to show a real-time map of council space. Every major facility, trade route, and military installation was marked. As they watched, red indicators began appearing next to each one. "Those red markers show human forces currently in position near your critical infrastructure," Torres explained. "As you can see, we are everywhere." The Altarian defense ministers stared at the display in horror. "Impossible. Our sensors would have detected such massive deployment." "Your sensors see what we want them to see," Torres replied. "For example, let me show you something interesting." The display focused on the vegan home system. The heavily fortified world showed normal traffic, cargo ships, patrol vessels, civilian transports, all routine. Then the view changed to a different sensor frequency. Suddenly, dozens of human ships became visible, hidden in the shadows of the normal traffic. "We have been among you for decades," Torres continued. "Human traders carried more than cargo. Human engineers built more than what appeared on the blueprints. Human diplomats listened to more than official negotiations." The council members looked around the chamber with new suspicion. How many humans had been in this very room? How much had they overheard? "But let me show you what really matters," Torres said. The display changed again, this time showing the quantum tunnel network that connected human space. The council members gasped as they saw the true scope of what humanity had built. Massive rings of energy surrounded the Sol system, connected by invisible threads to similar installations throughout the galaxy. "You thought human space was scattered and weak," Torres explained. "In reality, every human settlement is connected to every other human settlement by instantaneous transit. We can move entire fleets across the galaxy in seconds." The Zephyrian High Counselor's voice was barely a whisper. "How long have you had this capability? We finished the network 50 years ago. Every restriction you placed on us since then taught us to be more careful about hiding it." The silence in the chamber was complete. The council was beginning to understand the magnitude of their miscalculation. "You see," Torres continued, "you made a fundamental error. You assumed that controlling our expansion would prevent us from becoming dangerous. Instead, it forced us to become smart." He gestured to the displays around him. "Every limitation taught us patience. Every restriction taught us creativity. Every insult taught us determination. You wanted to contain humanity. Instead, you forged us into something you couldn't possibly defeat." The vegan counselor's translation device crackled to life. "What do you want?" Torres' expression became serious. "Simple. Complete autonomy for human space. Removal of all development restrictions. Reparations for the lives lost on the new Geneva. And formal recognition as an equal member of the galactic community." "And if we refuse?" the High Counselor asked. Torres didn't answer immediately. Instead, the display changed to show a single council installation, a mining operation in a remote system. As they watched, the facility simply vanished. No explosion, no energy discharge. It was there one moment and gone the next. "That facility has been relocated to a safe location," Torres explained. "Its workers are unharmed and will be returned when our negotiations conclude. But as you can see, we can make anything disappear whenever we choose." He leaned forward. "You destroyed the New Geneva in minutes. We can dismantle your entire civilization in hours. The only question is whether you're wise enough to choose peace." The transmission ended. The council members sat in stunned silence, staring at displays showing human forces positioned throughout their territory. For the first time in galactic history, the Hegemony Council faced an opponent they could not intimidate, could not overpower, and could not understand. The species they had dismissed as primitive had become something unprecedented, a military force that could strike anywhere, knew everything, and had the patience to plan for centuries. The High Counselor looked around the chamber at his fellow council members. In their eyes, he saw the same realization that chilled his own thoughts. They had awakened something terrible, and it was too late to put it back to sleep. Ambassador Wei Zhang walked through the corridors of the Hegemony Council Station 6 months after what historians would later call the Awakening. The same corridors where he had once begged for scraps were now filled with beings who stepped aside respectfully as he passed. Some nodded in greeting. Others simply watched with the careful attention reserved for those who commanded real power. The change was remarkable, but Zhang took no joy in it. Respect born from fear was hollow. He had hoped for something better. He entered the council chamber and took his place at the podium, not in the small side section reserved for restricted species, but at the central platform where only full council members were permitted. The human hegemony now held a permanent seat with veto power over all council decisions. It had been the first demand Torres had made when the council finally agreed to negotiate. Honored representatives, Zhang began, looking out at the assembled delegates. Today marks 6 months since humanity was granted full membership in the Galactic Council. It is time to discuss what we have learned. The Zephyrian High Counselor shifted uncomfortably in his seat. His species had suffered the most during the brief conflict. 3 of their core systems still had human fleets stationed nearby, not as occupying forces, but as security consultants. The distinction was meaningless. Everyone knew who really controlled Zephyrian space now. First, Zhang continued, let me address the concerns that many of you have expressed. Yes, humanity now possesses military capabilities that exceed anything the Council has seen before. Yes, we demonstrated that we could dismantle galactic civilization if we chose to do so. He paused, looking directly at the Altarian delegation. But notice what we did not do. We did not destroy your worlds. We did not slaughter your populations. We did not impose our government on your species. When we had absolute power, we chose restraint. The vegan counselor's translation device activated. Why? You could have ruled the galaxy. Zhang smiled sadly. Because ruling through fear is what you tried to do to us. We learned how that feels. We decided to be better. He activated a holographic display showing star charts of the galaxy. Where once the map had been divided into rigid territorial boundaries, new patterns were emerging. Trade routes crossed between species territories. Joint research stations appeared in previously forbidden systems. Mixed colonies showed multiple species working together. Instead of conquest, we offer partnership, Zhang explained. Humanity has developed technologies that can solve many galactic problems. We are sharing these freely with any species willing to treat us as equals. The display focused on a system where a massive terraforming project was underway. Human atmospheric processors worked alongside Altarian geological engineers and Zephyrian biological specialists. The barren world was slowly turning green. The Kepler 582 project, Zhang said. A dead world being brought to life through cooperation. In 5 years, it will support colonies from 6 different species. Another part of the display showed a medical research station where scientists from across the galaxy worked together. The discoveries they were making would benefit everyone. The cure for vegan bone rot, Zhang noted, the treatment for Altarian scale disease, the solution to Zephyrian hive madness, all developed using human medical technology shared freely with our partners. The High Counselor buzzed reluctantly. And what does humanity gain from this generosity? Zhang's expression became serious. What we always wanted, to be accepted as equals, to be judged by our contributions rather than your fears, to raise our children without wondering if they will be taken from us. He looked around the chamber. For 2 centuries, you told us we were dangerous. You restricted our growth, limited our research, treated us like children who could not be trusted. You were wrong about everything except one thing. We are dangerous, but not in the way you thought. The display changed to show images from across the galaxy. Human engineers, working with other species to build impossible structures. Human doctors, saving lives that were once considered beyond help. Human teachers sharing knowledge that opened new possibilities. We are dangerous to ignorance, Zhang said. We are dangerous to disease. We are dangerous to the idea that some species deserve more than others. We are dangerous to the belief that the galaxy cannot be a better place. An Altarian representative stood up. But you still maintain those fleets, those weapons. Why, if you truly want peace? Zhang's smile was patient but firm. Because peace requires strength. Because some species only understand respect when it is backed by power. Because we will never again allow anyone to murder 50,000 innocent people and call it justice. The chamber fell silent. The memory of the new Geneva hung over every discussion like a shadow. It had been the Council's great mistake, the act that finally pushed humanity beyond patience into action. However, Zhang continued, we do not intend to police the galaxy forever. As trust grows, our military presence will decrease. As cooperation replaces competition, our weapons will become unnecessary. But that choice is yours, not ours. He gestured to the star chart again. Look at what we have accomplished together in just 6 months. Imagine what we could do in 6 years, in 60 years, in 6 centuries. A young delegate from a recently discovered species raised her hand. Zhang nodded for her to speak. Ambassador Zhang, she said, my people are new to galactic society. We have heard stories about the old restrictions, the old fears. We want to know, how do we avoid making the same mistakes the Council made with humanity? Zhang considered the question carefully. By remembering that every species has something to teach and something to learn. By treating differences as opportunities rather than threats. By understanding that cooperation creates strength, while oppression creates enemies. And by never ever believing that you can control another species through fear, and still call it peace. The session ended shortly after. As delegates filed out of the chamber, Zhang noticed something that would have been impossible 6 months ago. Representatives from different species were talking together, making plans, sharing ideas. The rigid barriers that had once divided the galaxy were starting to crumble. Later that evening, Zhang stood in his office looking out at the stars. Earth was visible in the distance, no longer a prison, but a home he could be proud of. Captain Sarah Chen entered without knocking, a habit she had developed since their relationship had become less formal. How did it go today? She asked. Better than expected, Zhang replied. The vegan delegation proposed a joint research initiative. The Altarians want to discuss trade agreements that benefit both species. Even the Zephyrians are starting to ask for our help with some of their domestic problems. Sarah joined him at the window. And the resistance factions? Zhang sighed. Still there. The Orion Syndicate thinks we've become too soft. The Rigel Alliance wants us to establish a human empire while we have the chance. They don't understand that empires fall, but partnerships endure. Do you think it will work? Sarah asked. This new order we're trying to build? Zhang was quiet for a moment. I think we have to try. The alternative is to become what they feared we were. Conquerors who rule through strength alone. Our children would inherit a galaxy that hated and feared them. He turned from the window to face her. We spent 2 centuries learning patience. We can spend a few more learning trust. In systems throughout the galaxy, human ships continued their quiet patrols, not as occupying forces, but as guardians of the new order they had helped create. Their weapons remained ready, their technology remained hidden, their strength remained available for those who might forget the lessons of the past. But increasingly, those weapons were not needed. The galaxy was discovering that cooperation was more profitable than oppression, that diversity was stronger than uniformity, that the species they had once feared was actually their greatest ally. Humanity had finally achieved what they had always wanted, not dominion over the stars, but a place among them. They had proven that the most dangerous species in the galaxy was not the one with the biggest weapons, but the one with the longest memory and the patience to use it wisely. The Council had gone too far. They had pushed humanity past patience into action. But humanity's greatest revenge was not conquest or destruction. It was proving that there was a better way to live among the stars, and offering to share it with anyone wise enough to accept it. Peace through respect, or peace through strength. The galaxy was finally learning to choose wisely.